Welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Journey Through the Sacred Tarot, the 7-week journey to reveal archetypes and synchronicities to activate your true self and a better world. I'm Lisa Bonise, and I'm really looking forward to this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Magick Altman and address questions about her upcoming 7-week course, Journey Through the Sacred Tarot, which begins Thursday, November 7th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Magick Altman is an author, teacher, and a tarot card reader who's well-versed in Kabbalah, numerology, astrology, and Jungian archetypes. She employs her highly developed intuition to weave together a life story and reveal the current lessons. Her book, Magick Tarot, A Journey of Self-Realization, draws back the curtain of our personal stories, revealing all the characters, actions, and emotions which spotlight our life lessons and how to grow into our full potential. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to bring Magick online. Welcome, Magick. It's so great to finally connect.
Indeed. Yes, I'm really excited. These are such an intense and important times. We really can be the generation that when the future generations come, looks back and said, they turned it around. I believe that's why we're here. I believe it's extremely important that we know specifically and simply what our authentic gift is to give at this time. It's overwhelming to think, what can I do? How can I help? But it's simply being your authentic self. That's why you're here right now. And there's no better tool than the Tarot to help you learn and understand what your gifts are and how to give them and who to work with and where.
All right, that's fantastic. I'm so looking forward to this conversation because I've been a dabbler in Tarot for many years, and I know that a lot of people who are watching have a lot of questions. So we have the rest of our time together to dive into questions as we prepare for Magick's upcoming course. Again, that's called Journey Through the Sacred Tarot, and again, it begins Thursday, November 7th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit sacredtarotcourse.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with some questions. If you have a question for Magick, you can go ahead and type it in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. And in the meantime, we've got plenty of questions coming in. And I want to remind everybody that Mercury in retrograde starts tomorrow. So we're already seeing some cuspy energies here. I just want to let everybody know that during the course, Magick's internet connection is going to be a lot better. And mine's even freezing up a little bit today. So just hang with us and we'll roll with the punches. So let's go ahead and start with probably the most basic question here. This is from Anne, who wants to know, which tarot deck and spread would you suggest for a beginner?
Well, I actually suggest that you don't start with a spread, that you get a deck. I really prefer the Thoth deck. I love the images and the art, but also you need to look at different decks. The visuals must appeal to you. That's very key. But what you do is get a deck that appeals to you and put it on your altar and pick a card a day. It's overwhelming to start with spreads because you tend to think too much intellectually. You just want to get the image in your mind. If you're more mental, then read from the book that you have around the tarot, because you will need a book and not just the little pamphlets that come with that. That little pamphlets are kind of comparable to the astrology in the newspaper. It's just not deep enough. And then you'll start seeing how the tarot manifests in your life, because we can't memorize the cards. They don't have the same meaning. They're like people, that we don't want to stereotype them. So we want to keep giving new understandings by having experiential times with the cards. So you'll pick a card, read about it or not, and then go out in your day and you'll see it appear to you in many different ways. And also you can read at night if you prefer, so you're not working with the mental plane, more with the intuitive and visual. I can recommend a few other decks too, though, if you'd like. Like the Mother Piece is a wonderful deck for teenage girls, for example. It really empowers them to know who they are, especially in these, Me Too times and what's happening with our female female power in the world. And, there's a lot of beautiful decks. There's the Voyager deck, which is really wonderful. And it's a collage motif. So if you like that visual, that works very well too. The Rider-Waite is the most traditional, but I like the modern decks more because in the Rider-Waite, you only have 3 male court cards and only 1 female. So we don't have that younger spirit of the feminine that isn't just about being wife and mother, but is also about being activated within herself.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think that was very helpful. And you've sort of already touched on this, but let's look at this question here from Maggie, who says, I've heard that you can read tarot cards without knowing their assigned meanings by simply looking at the picture on the card and talking about what the images evoke in your mind. Is that accurate?
Absolutely true. That's great because also sometimes in a reading, if I'm giving a client a reading at least once, I usually like to just ask them, what do you see? Not for them to interpret intellectually, but just tell me what pops out, what the symbols are, because symbolic visual art language goes straight to the soul. It bypasses the mental and we feel something. So when somebody says, oh, I really noticed that bird in the corner, or this card makes me sad, then it tells me, and if you're doing it for yourself, you about what you're feeling from that card. So on that plane, it works. The amazing thing about the tarot is on any level, anybody I've ever talked to, they pick a card, something resonates. That's the magic of it.
Okay. And this next question actually addresses something that you just said about memorizing the cards. You're saying that you really can't memorize, but the cards do have meanings that it would be helpful to know. So B is asking, is there a method to remembering the meanings of the cards? I don't believe there's an easy way, she says.
Right. Well, there is an intrinsic nature to each card, just like we have an intrinsic nature, but we don't want to be memorized or stereotyped. So there are things you can memorize around what is the astrological influences, what are the number values, what are the color values, what is the Kabbalistic connection, what is the archetypal lesson. And then there's the elements, fire, air, earth, and water. And those are the most simplest way to access the cards, because if you get a fire card, it means action. It means your spirit wants to move in some way. Or if it's a stillness card in the suit of fire, then it would mean to not move and wait. So then there's water, air, and earth. So water, emotions. So the cards are speaking to the element of relationships. And then if we have swords, it represents the idea of the intellect. So we're working on mind, ideas, visions. And then if we have earth, we're working on manifestation, the body, and specifically the discs or earth or pentacles, they're called sometimes, are really mainly around our work in the world. How do we manifest our visions in a positive and effective way?
Okay, thank you for that. I want to mention real quick again for anybody who's just joining us, we're having Mercury and retrograde issues with the internet connection. So it's not you, it's us. So just hang with us and we'll plow through this. What you were just saying, though, about the different suits, there's a question here about how different decks sometimes don't use those specific words where you can remember that wands mean this and cups mean this because they're using different wording. Is there a trick to memorizing a new deck in that way?
Well, it's pretty easy. I mean, you could just go online and find the correspondence because the most common is what I said, and it's cups, swords, discs, and wands. But some decks change with the discs, for example, are called pentacles often. And so that, it's pretty easy to know, but all decks, if they're tarot decks, they are those suits. They are those elements, fire, air, earth, and water. And just to talk about Mercury retrograde a bit, I was born under Mercury retrograde, so I have a relationship with it that's kind of unique. And the truth of the matter is Mercury retrograde is not a negative. It's just very antithetical to our culture. Our culture is saying go, go, go all the time. Mercury's the messenger. Mercury's the fastest planet. It goes 88 days zooming around the sun. But when it appears to be retrograde or going in reverse, that's a time to use the rewords, to regroup, to reflect, to renew, to replenish, and with technical things, it probably means something wasn't taken care of or fixed that you should have already done. And Mercury saying, hey, what about that? So in a way, I like to play with these archetypes as almost like we're talking as characters with them. So we bring them alive in our work. And also, by the way, this is, Halloween is tomorrow. And so in the pagan tradition, that is a cross-quarter day directly between fall equinox and winter solstice. So it's a power day, it's a portal. And we, in many cultures, believe that the veil between the worlds is thinnest. And so it's a good time to connect with the ancestors. And, I'm not so much into the idea of, talking or seances or anything, but I believe we're all connected through time. And so there's a friend of mine once said, there's a lot of unemployment on the other side because they need to be asked. They're not going to interfere. So you can ask for support. You can ask for connection. You can ask for them to be at the wind at your back at these incredible times because they were born to see us be born, to make sure that we turn this around at this critical point and move forward. There's a song that we're using in our actions in the streets and out in the world now, which is people are going to rise like the water. They're going to calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great granddaughter saying, save this sacred ground. So we're in between the past and the future. We are the critical time, and we are born to do this. And we want to think about our great granddaughter, and we want to feel our great grandmother, and feel, other ancestors on the male aspect as well that are there for us. We are part of a wave. We're not alone.
All right. Well, thank you for mentioning that. I think that was very helpful. So we've got a question here from Amy, who's actually asking about the course specifically. She wants to know, how will this course help us feel more fluid in reading our tarot cards? And how will we be able to use these interpretations for different decks and illustrations? I know you've already sort of touched on that, but let's go ahead and talk about how the course is going to help with that.
Well, we're going to go through the entire deck, and we're going to learn I'll tell you the simplest way to really access the tarot is imagine it's a movie or a play. So you have the major arcana. They're the themes of the play. You've got the court cards or personality cards. They're the characters, either aspects of yourself or people in your life or people that are going to come into your life or have influenced the past. And then we have the 40 minor arcana and their 4 suits, and those are the actions or the emotions. So we can see this story being revealed. So in a reading, you really get a little mini play or movie of your life. We look at the past, the present, and where you're probably heading in the future. So when you start to get to know all the characters, when you're looking at the decks, and we can also in the course, we will go through how to do the classic Celtic cross full 10 card spread. And we'll talk a little bit about a simpler 3-card spread as well. So another way to really feel that you can use it is start playing with it with your friends when they come over. Everybody pick a card, ask a question, share what you see in the picture, even if you don't want to use the book. This is a very accessible tool on every level. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an expert. The first reading I ever had, wow, that was it for me. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you. Let's go to we've got a lot of people asking the same question, and because you've been doing this for so many years, I know that you're not going to be at all surprised. But a lot of people are asking about using the tarot to help with their love life. Does so and so love me? Is so and so cheating? That type of thing. So, can the tarot be used to answer this kind of question? And if so, what's the best way to approach questions like this?
So important. I deal with relationship all the time. In a way, I have many therapists come to me. It is like your own therapist. And so, when you work on relationships, the first thing I do is reframe the question. Like you said, is my partner cheating on me? Well, I'm not here to spy on your partner. I'm here to help you understand how to create healthy relationships. So I would say, what do I need to be aware of to improve this relationship? Is this a relationship? If I continue forward with this, is this have potential for growth for me? Is this going to be something that will help me move forward? How could I invite a healthy relationship into my life? And we will look at relationship issues in your past. I also do that by calculating the numbers, the life numbers and cards of people you've been in relationship with in the past, including your parents, which is often very useful. So you'll learn how to do that numerology with the constellation around you. And then we'll see where you're probably heading in the future. And, sometimes in a relationship, you'll need to be more social. You don't want to be isolated 2-on-2. Often in relationships, people go immediately to it's my cosmic soulmate, and they don't realize that hinders them from going through the steps that they need to take to get to a real deep relationship, because there's always a point, like in the Suit of Cups. Number 5 is disappointment in love. So we've gone through, I'm just happy to be alive, then I've fallen in love, then I'm meeting my friends and family, and it's a luxurious dream. And then boom, just like in any movie or any play, the challenge comes in. So it is at that point that we can use non-reactive Turo wisdom to build a bridge of communication where we're speaking from the I voice and learning how to ask for the respect and the communication and sit in that fire for a minute and learn to talk to each other. Anyone could be your soulmate. Can you talk to them? Can you communicate with them? Can you grow with them? Is there mutual respect? That's the keys that we work on to develop in any relationship. And I've worked with with thousands of people, literally working on their relationships and moving towards more healthy energies in their relationships. And of course, not just with romantic, but with family, parents, children, siblings, all of that.
Right. Well, then let's take this same question and lay it over another really common topic, and that's money. People want to know, when is my money going to change? How are my finances going to be? Again, you've been doing this for years, and you know that this is one of the most common questions. So let's go ahead and address how people can use the Tarot to answer this question for themselves.
First of all, I take it out of the word money and into the realm of abundance and scarcity. Why would you feel you're not getting what you need? What is the scarcity fear within yourself? How can we open the gates to abundance that the Empress in the Tarot always says? There's always enough if we know how to open our hearts and work with the creativity in an authentic way. And so again, the reframing, it's not this is a tool to help you be conscious. We're at a spiritual point right now that, people when I first started doing Tarot, they kind of want you to fix you or tell them what's going to happen or be an answer. I do talk about the probabilities of the future, but the purpose is for you to see, how can you grow through this situation? I don't look at situations as good or bad. This is what is. This is your opportunity. These are your tools. This is your lesson, and move forward. And then what the client, or you, if you're using the deck for yourself, gets is a confirmation of your own inner knowing. You know what you need to know. You need mirrors, reflections, and tools and wisdom and knowledge that have come from humans who have dealt with these same situations for millennia. So really recognize that it is you that can grow and move in a spiritual way, you that can bring abundance in your life, and be open and let go of fear and receive. One of the big things about financial situations is that people, especially women, tend not to know how to receive. If you're always giving, then you don't have any space for people to give to you. And in these times when so many people are challenged, like here in California, we're being deeply challenged, as you know, by the fires. But what we're seeing is that people that aren't used to receiving, they need to receive, they need to ask. And it's a good lesson. And it is never more obvious than times like this, when we see that we really love each other. We don't hate each other. We're not enemies fighting and trying to win over each other. We're really in this together. We need to get past the fight, flight, fright into the conscious recognition that it's interconnected. All life is interconnected. It's a both and world, not an either or.
Okay, thank you. We got a question here from Tara who wants to know what's the difference between tarot cards and angel cards, or for that matter, any of the other oracle cards that aren't specifically tarot?
Right, a good question. So all of the other cards, they're very useful tools, but there's a very specific over 500-year system within the Tarot that incorporates numerology, the elements, the archetypes. So these other tools are probably offshoots of the original idea of Tarot, and they're wonderful. But if it's a Tarot deck, it must follow the actual formula. And I think there's a lot more depth. For example, in the Tarot, you can incorporate the Kabbalah, astrology, numerology, Jungian archetypes, symbols, mythology as well, which is really fun. And all of those integrate. Most of the other systems don't have that container to bring in all of those universal systems that, you can bring them in as appropriate to what works and what aspect of the card needs to be used by now. And your intuition will draw you to that. You don't have to figure this all out. Just go with learning and using it on a daily basis, and you'll start feeling it become a part of your own inner schemata.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Amy wants to know, how can we read tarot cards and still allow for human choice in changing the outcomes?
Exactly. That's key. We should never, I think it's unethical for any reader to tell you that they know exactly what's going to happen in their life, because there's always change. Change is actually, ironically, the constant in the universe. So you always in Tarot say the probabilities. You always have choice. If you don't have a choice about changing the specific situation you're in, you always have choice about how to relate to it. My favorite example of this is Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 28 years. Could anyone have imagined him becoming the president and leading his country out of apartheid? It was a miracle. What did he do? He couldn't get out of that prison, could he? So he couldn't make that happen. So he changed his relationship to what was happening there. And at his inauguration, his prison guards sat in the front row. To me, that's a miracle. And one of the things that Nelson Mandela also said is everything's impossible until it happens. And I love that, because truthfully, everything's an idea and everything's a vision and a dream. And we can bring that into manifestation. And the Tarot, and specifically the Kabbalah, going through the 10 stations on the Tarot, shows you literally how you take an idea and move through all the elements, all the numbers, all the stages into actual physical manifestation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Got a question here from Renee Rose, who wants to ask you to speak about the color aspects in the Rider-Waite deck.
Well, colors are definitely, we see in advertising, people have figured out, like, there used to always be in all of the older restaurants, everything was orange and yellow, because that made people move quickly and in and out. And so oranges and yellows are active energies, fiery, usually associated with the suit of fire. Usually the colors are connected to the suits as well. So then you would be in swords, it would be more the air. So that would be yellow, white, silver. Sometimes some light blues and pinks. And so that's more ethereal. And then you could move into the suit of water, and then you have the blues and greens and purples that make you feel more that slowing down, that serenity, that peacefulness, that being in touch with the heart plane and not having to do, but to be with your own feelings. And then the earth, we get the more browns and greens and, black, and even we get some orange and red, but in a kind of a muddy, earthier tone. So the colors set moods, just like if you look at a painting, that you want in your house, where you want it to have the colors and the elements that make you feel a certain way. So some cards, like the Eight of Cups in the Thoth deck, has dark rain clouds, and there's cups are broken, and it just makes you feel there's this ominous heaviness. And the interesting thing is, when somebody gets a card like that, they feel like that. So if you're a good reader, and if you're honest, with yourself when you're looking at cards, you're like, yeah, that's the way I feel right now. So if you get a challenge card in the Tarot, like one of those, there's 13 in the minor arcana that are specifically considered challenge cards. Then you pick another card. How can I deal with that challenge? So you can't just keep picking more and more cards, but just the one and the next, and then you'll have a sense of the tools that that can help you to work with that. The Chinese have an ancient proverb that I live by, which is, it is only when we see things exactly as they are that we can find a way through. And that's what's happening in the world right now. We have to be honest enough to see, even though things can be make us be fearful and confused, we need to breathe and slow down and say, okay, this is actually really what's happening, and what do we really need to do as a community, working with other people to create this new world that we can move into, that's right here underneath our feet. We just need to shift the consciousness. We need to shift the consciousness into interconnectedness and peace and love towards each other as human beings, and not be sucked into these reactive, every day we're told to react and hate and be angry about this or that. Don't do it. Breathe. Know that if humans are being negative, that comes from their personal problems. They need to do their work, but you can do your work and be a conscious witness and active participator in creating and birthing this new age.
All right. Beautifully stated. Thank you for that. Let's go to a question here from Autumn, who says, I keep drawing the High Priestess when I draw a card. I would be interested in hearing more about that specific card.
Wonderful. Well, it is the card that I picked for the cover of my book because I love it so much. So also I just want to note that you usually do keep picking cards. Everyone I know says, I keep seeing this card. What does it mean? So the Priestess is the divine, feminine, intuitive. She is connected to the moon in the Tarot. On the Kabbalah, she crosses the desert, trusting her intuition, even when she can't see where she's going to, where that oasis is. Every step the Priestess takes is for you to learn how to trust your intuitive sense, even though it may not seem logical. Things can be illogical and true. So as you practice being the Priestess and saying your truth in the moment and acting on it, you'll be more able to build that knowledge of your own intuitive voice, which is the intuitive voice and which is these other reactive or fear-based energies. And you'll develop how to be a priestess. People often ask me, are you psychic? I'm like, we're all psychic. We're all intuitive. But we have to develop that skill. We need to trust it. We need to use it, and it grows. And then we recognize it on a more deep level. So if you keep getting the Priestess, you got some work to do that's going to help all of us. Blessings on that.
All right. Thank you. And for those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Magick Altman, learning about her upcoming course, Journey Through the Sacred Tarot, which begins Thursday, November 7th. And you can log on to sacredtarotcourse.com for all the details and to register. So let's go ahead and get back to questions. We have a question here from Tara, who wants to know, do you have to sage your deck before you start to use them to cleanse them? And let me add another question here. With a brand new deck, how do you break them in? How are you supposed to, sort of align them with your own energies? And should you allow anyone else to touch your deck?
Okay, first of all, I'm not a superstitious person, so I don't believe in shoulds, but I do think that this is your sacred tool. You want to treat it like that. If sage and cleansing it feels like the way to do it for you, I think that's wonderful. Some people like to put gems that they put in the sun or cleansed in water on top of their deck. And I think it's good to, just start playing with it and picking cards and holding it in your hand and spreading it out and picking different cards for each day and breaking it in that way. But, I believe that I was given my first tarot deck by my daughters for Mother's Day, actually, over 35 years ago. And I feel that you can you can buy your own deck. It's not a sin. There's no sins here. It's lovely for someone to give you a deck. It has a magical quality to it. Many people have given me decks over the years, but you can select your own deck. And I think it's important to be empowered that way because, someone might give you a deck and you just don't relate to the images, and you shouldn't feel stuck to that deck because it was a gift. And I am totally, in my readings, when I'm in person, I always have my client shuffle the cards themselves and put their own energy into it. It's very fun. And when I do it online, which I do so much now, I always ask the person to focus with me while I mix the cards. So I channel their energy into the cards, and then I can lay out the deck.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm glad that you mentioned that some cards don't speak to you and some do, because I know in my own personal experience, I'll pick up a deck and they just lay there. And then other times you lay out a spread and the pictures just pop out at you and they give you messages without you even trying. So yes, thank you for mentioning that part of it. Let's see. We've got a question here from Irene, who wants to know, why am I so drawn to learning the Tarot at this time in my life? I never thought about that before, and I wonder, is this a test?
That's an interesting question. I would not say it's a test. It may be that you're ready for this tool now and receive it and learn about it and see what gifts it has for you, because it's come to you for a reason. And I would explore that reason without judgment of what it is, but say it's here. Let me see if it speaks to me, if it's something I can use. I feel that the Tarot is so accessible to everyone, and I think you're going to enjoy exploring it. I'm glad you got a gift of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got somebody here who's asking if you can talk a little bit about numerology and how it relates to the Tarot.
One of my favorite subjects, I grew up loving math, and then as I got older in school, they always made it so separated from life that I stopped liking it. And when I discovered the Tarot, I was re-inspired because numbers have natures, and we don't think about that often. But for example, 1, it's union. 2, it's change or reflection or diversity. So all of the numbers have natures. 3 is synthesis. 4 is structure, order. 5 is motion and change, and it goes on down. So everything we do has math underneath it. If they taught math to children in schools through music, which is completely mathematical and one of the most beautiful vehicles in our world. I mean, universe means one song. So people could love math and love how you get up into geometry and you can see how one arc that you have in these 2 angles can show you how to create a structure. So it's beautiful. It's an exquisite system. And if something can be proven mathematically, then it's true. Einstein proved that. That's why his theory of relativity works, because it is proven as a mathematical formula. So math is a beautiful and simple way to look at things. For example, let me give you a simple example in the Tarot. If, let's say you got the first time I saw someone get 3 10s in a reading, I was like, wow, that's strange. So 10 is the position that is manifested. So once you're in 10s, you've gone as far as you can in that suit, and you need to return to the 1. So if someone's got a whole bunch of 10s, then it suggests that they're stuck in old patterns and need to refresh, renew, and start again. 5s, everything's in motion and change. So common numbers are interesting. Dominant numbers, because for example, you can also, let's say you get 3 3s. Well, all of the 3s relate to the meta level of the Empress, which is number 3 in the archetypal level. And we'll cover all of this numerology simply. I would like to think that using the Tarot, you can end your I hate math syndrome, which so many of us have, because we never understood how it was part of life. It was always separated and logical, and no one told us what it really meant. And it is deeply significant to use numbers to understand. And I can't tell you how many people, I'm sure many of you out there feel the same ways. You see patterns in numbers. I always see 11 and 11. What does it mean? I always see 3 3 3. So because we have inherently this connection. We have 10 fingers, 10 toes. That's the decimal system. That's how the Tarot works. That's how the Kabbalah works. That's how manifestation works from 1 all the way to 10, because 10, is then 1 and 0, which is 1 again, and we're back to the new beginning, and it cycles like that. So numbers are elegant, they have a nature, they have a personality, and they are a wonderful way to look at the Tarot, just another lens to understand its nature.
Okay, thank you. That was very informative. We've got a question here from Terry, who says, I've had readings from a psychic who says he only uses the cards as a focusing tool for his own intuition. How much does our intuition come into play here?
Well, it's very much inherent in what you're doing, because again, it's not a memorizing. So as you use the cards more, your intuition, as I was speaking about with the Priestess, gets deeper, gets richer, and it's a lot of intuition, but it still, isn't just the images. There is knowledge behind, and many, many incredible scholars like Mary Greer or Rachel Pollack or James Wanless or Paul Foster Case, Aleister Crowley. These are people that are extremely knowledgeable in all the different layers and understandings of the Tarot. So yes, it can be used as an intuitive psychic trigger to awaken ideas in you, but that's not how deep it can go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's do a question here from Elizabeth. She says, is it dangerous to do readings at home? I mean, is there any possibility that unwanted energies could come through?
No, just simply no. If you're feeling that there's something uncomfortable in your home, it is good to sage or use sweetgrass or copal and just clear your energy. One of the ways to do that is open your windows and doors and release the old energy and just bring in some fresh scent. They've actually proven scientifically that sage actually can kill the microbes in the air that can cause sickness, and especially for people with asthma. So, I'm always amused because all these things that we intuitively have known for so long, science makes them real to other people. I personally think that science and intuition should complement each other at all times. They're not opposing. And so, when you're concerned that there's some negative entities, then you need to look at what is the fear that you're dealing with? And you can pick a card. What is this fear that I'm concerned about? How can I become proactive in dealing with that and not feeling that people have power over me and I'm just reacting to them? Because that puts your power center outside of you.
Okay. And here's a related question. Bridget says, my family thinks the Tarot is evil and won't have anything to do with it, so I'm concerned, even though I'm fascinated.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are misconceptions about the Tarot, and I have done readings for many people that are religious and spiritual in different practices. And I think it's important to recognize that there is nothing that is evil in itself. We allow negative energies to come through us when we're unconscious or because we've been hurt or wounded. But really, there's nothing like, for example, there's the devil card in the Tarot. But actually, on its deeper level, it's because the pagan aspect of Pan, who is this potent masculine energy that loves dancing and music and wild places, was judged as negative. We find that lots of times our natural body, our natural pleasure is seen in certain archaic religious practices as wrong. And then we are prejudiced against that. And all of us need to be mind, heart, body, and soul, all levels. The body is a beautiful vehicle for a gift and should be honored and listened to and loved and not negated. And so I have talked to many people about, first of all, I'm not going to tell you what your life is. That is negative. That's wrong. We always must empower the person. The cards are here to empower you. I am not the authority. I am a channel and a teacher working with the Tarot to help you understand it so you can use it. We are all growing up now as spiritual beings. We need to dial direct. We need to face the mystery and find ways to know in ourselves what our truth is. So we're not giving our power away in ways that leave us to not know how to deal with situations ourselves. I hope that it's a very difficult question for people. I understand that, but it's a tool. It's not trying to counter your beliefs. It's just, if it makes sense to you, if it's useful, use it. If it doesn't, resonate, let it go.
Okay, thank you. That was, I think, a very thorough, helpful answer. And looking at the clock here, we have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I want to give a few details about the course itself, because people are asking about that as well. So I think this is a good time to dive into that. Once again, the course is called Journey Through the Sacred Tarot, and this is going to be a fun and fascinating 7-week journey under Magick's expert guidance, where you'll learn how to do a tarot reading and adopt this ancient tool as a wise friend that can awaken your true nature and help you manifest your life's purpose. The 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, starting Thursday, November 7th. And if you can't join us live, as I mentioned earlier, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings because we record everything. You will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage, so those transcripts can almost be like a textbook. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until November 21st in this case, to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another and help each other out with homework and have conversations. Also, everyone who registers receives the Journey Through the Sacred Tarot bonus collection. First, you receive a video dialogue with Magick entitled Discover Your Tarot Archetypes. Then you get a video teaching from Magick called How to Do Your Birthday Reading. And next, you'll receive a video teaching by Magick entitled The Cards' Energetic Connection with Kabbalah. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Saturday, November 2nd, you'll receive this extra bonus, and that is a video teaching by Magick called Turo and the Elements. So before we get back into questions, Magick, let me ask you, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, I feel it's my destiny to help people discover and empower my clients and my students to be their authentic self and to trust that who they are is the gift. You know, we live in a culture that is so much about taking and grabbing from the world and seeking power and possessions. And it's time for us to know that each of us came with a gift. If you don't give your gift, it'll be lost forever, because there's never this time, this moment, and you. And I'm asking you to please find a way to give your gift. You know, if you're meant to be a gardener, then be a gardener, and then find a way to maybe help your local school do an organic garden. Whatever your gift is, it doesn't matter. If you feel you're meant to sit under a tree and meditate, do that. I mean, that worked for someone we know a few thousand years ago to really help us all understand the human mind. So, Tarot is a gift, and I so want to share it because, I get thrilled when I do readings for people and I see the synchronicities and they say, oh, I just thought that. Oh, my mom just said that. Oh, my husband told me that yesterday. So then I say, see, the universe is reflecting back to you. That's what the tarots are. They're mirrors, they're reflections. Every card will tell you, see, this is you now. This is your gifts. And here's the tools. Here's how you can move forward. Here's how you can relate to that situation. Here's how you might work with that person or that job or this trip or this family member or a physical health issue. I deal with that all the time as well. And what the tarot does that I love people to realize is the synchronicities are astounding. One of my favorite stories is when I did a reading for a woman who was about to have a surgery on her back. And there was 2 discs in her neck that needed to be operated on. Well, the first card in the tarot was the 2 of discs. I mean, the tarot loves to take things literally, and it will show me new ways to look at the cards myself because of the question and the client. And so I was able to talk to her about how this was actually a recognition that it was a time for her, because discs are the suit of career, and this card is Jupiter and Capricorn, that she needed to expand and find the creativity in her work, and the tension was building in her body. And so she needed to come through this to open up to what her creative aspects were in the work. And I also did the I Ching for her that day, and it was called the stilling of the spine. Again, so literal. So she came back from the operation a few weeks later, and she said, "Thank you so much. I was able to go into it with the knowledge that you gave me and be calm and receptive, and the healing is going great." Now, you notice she didn't say, "Am I going to be okay?" And I didn't say, "Oh, yes, of course." No, I gave her the tools and reflections about the meaning of this. Our health challenges, as many of you know, are some of the most difficult and yet revealing and growth opportunities in our lives at these times.
Yes, they are. Absolutely. Thank you for addressing that. And since you brought up synchronicity, let me ask this question here from Mary, who says, "This year, 3 ex-male friends appeared at my job looking for me. How can the Tarot tell me why this is happening?"
Sounds like you're getting a review of your relationships. And I would sit down and say, like in the Lover's card, I suggest people review their past relationships to see how to invite a healthy one in now. So you want to look at each of those people and say, well, what did I learn from that situation? What did I learn from this person? But also, I mean, it could be that one of them is coming back to reconnect. Maybe you both have grown and learned the lessons that weren't understood at the time that you split apart, and maybe now you have a chance. I mean, we know the phenomenon that's happening with media and Facebook, that people that were high school sweethearts are rediscovering each other. All kinds of situations like that are happening. People are finding each other and reconnecting to someone that they really always wanted to know. So it could be all of those things. And the cards would help you understand, because you could pick a card for each of those people and see, well, what's the lesson here? What's this about? Is this about reconnecting this person, or do I need to remember something that I forgot about how I don't want to repeat a negative pattern in my life? All of those are possibilities. And maybe one of them is coming back as a friend and an ally. That could be true too. That would be the Prince of Wands if that showed up for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now, this is a huge question, but it is part of the course. So obviously you're going to be teaching on this extensively, but Anita is just asking, how can the Tarot help me find my life's purpose?
Very good. Well, first we would start with calculating your life cards. You figure with your birthday, you either have 1, 2, or 3 life cards, and that would represent your life lesson for this incarnation. So with the life lesson cards, usually you feel immediately connected or completely not connected. That means that you either feel like you're already on that path, or this is something you need to become aware of. And then also you'll be asking questions. One of the best ways I have felt is through the card called Strength or Lust, which is about doing things you passionately love without any goal, without lust of result, to what makes you feel alive. So much in our lives has been, we've got to, take care of the kids, or we've got to do the job, or we've got to take care of things that are happening in health issues. And we forget that that young child in us had passions. Did you follow the passions? Were people encouraging of what you love to do, of who you were? I mean, education actually should be a tool to give people tools and reflections and ways to become who they are. The word education comes from educer, which means to draw out. So our education is meant to help, especially our children. What are you interested in? And then we'll say, let's go find that out in the woods or in the science museum, or, you seem to be interested in acting. Let's get you in a play. So you want to find your passion without thinking, what am I supposed to do? Who am I? Do things that make you feel alive. You'll find out who you are. Like Joseph Campbell, the great mythologist, said, if you follow your bliss, you'll find out who you are. I mean, personally, I never said, hey, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a tarot reader. I mean, it really never crossed my mind. But I've gotten on the spiritual path from a very young age, and I have found this tool more than any other to empower me to reflect, respond, and consciously grow to be of service in this world at this crucial time. We can all do that. I would be honored to serve you in accessing this tool, which is easy to connect to, truthfully, and use it as often as you need to answer a question. If you're anywhere you want, you can just say, I could look at the cards and I would get a reflection. I need some counseling right now. Well, you can be your own counsel. And if you need help, of course, there's classes in Turo like this, or, readings that you can get. So I would be so excited to help you use this tool to grow in these times.
Okay, wow, thank you. And I want to mention once again for anybody who's just signing on after I said this the last time, we're having a little bit of internet difficulty today. So the course itself is going to have much better quality. So let's go ahead and move on. We've got another question from somebody asking about choosing a deck. They're asking, what deck would you suggest that they use specifically for the course?
I highly recommend the Deck of Thoth. It was created by Aleister Crowley, and Lady Frida Harris did the art. And those are the images in my deck, in my book. And so I love the images. Also, you can get the very large cards, or you can get a medium or small if you want to carry it around with you. So there's different sizes of the deck. But I just find the art exquisite, and I highly recommend that. There's so much symbolism in it too. Like on each deck, there's the Hebrew letter that goes with what pathway that is on the Kabbalah. And then there's you can work with the different astrological signs that connect with the personality cards, are also represented and shown in the minor arcana. For example, the Two of Dis, as I mentioned earlier, is Jupiter and Capricorn. So all of the minor arcana have planets and astrological signs to connect to.
Okay, thank you for answering that again. I think people are logging in a little bit late after you've already addressed it, but it's
Sure.
good to go ahead and touch on that again.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we've got a question here from Tanya, who wants to know, how much can the tarot be used to tell the future?
It absolutely can, but always remember probabilities. You still have the factor. It is amazing at predicting where you're heading. So I'd like to, say that if it's you see where you're going in the future, the probabilities of that. So in a reading, in a Celtic cross reading, there's 4 cards in the present, 1 for the past, and 5 in the future. And as soon as we get into the future, we're talking probabilities. If there's a lot of challenges, you can look to the present and the past to say, well, I don't have to go there if I deal with this now, and then you can recreate what's going in the future. But it is uncanny in its ability to show you where you're probably heading, what influences will be in the future, what your hopes and fears are about the future, what is the inner part of you that you need to activate for this time, and what the outcome probably will be is the final card in a reading. So it's a very predictive tool. Just remember, you own that prediction and how you work with it. It's in your power to work with that prediction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Wendy wants to know, is it okay for family to read the cards for you?
Oh, absolutely. I read this for my family all the time. In fact, my daughter, April, is a reader. She took classes from me for 5 years, and I took belly dance from her, and we exchanged as mother and daughter, which is pretty unique. So she's been a reader for over 20 years, and she's amazing. And yes, you can use it. You can. The more you know a person, the deeper you can go. We're not playing mind reader here. We're using an ancient tool to really work with each other. And often with my family, we sat around, and it's a way to create closeness. We would all pick a card for the day or the event we're participating in together, or a family dinner, or just whatever we're working on. And it's a way to deepen our connections and to bring something outside in the family, which also often helps, so we just don't stay in those same patterns that families often get into when they gather. So it's a beautiful tool to share on many levels. And it's a great way to practice. If you're sister and you want to learn how to do Turo, then you can learn together and practice on each other. That's how I started out. I practiced on family and friends, and I never planned on being a reader, frankly. I was asked to be a hostess in a psychic fair. My life had changed a lot, and the first reading, I was like, I can do this. I've been doing it for 5 years, never thought of it. But see, I followed what I loved, and I didn't have a goal, and I used a spiritual tool, and it became a life work for me. And I'm so honored to be a vehicle for this. It served me infinitely to clarify things when I'm confused or need clarity or need a little synchronistic hit to confirm that I know I'm on the right path.
All right. Oh, I'm glad this question came up because my daughter is an extremely gifted reader. And as I mentioned, I'm a dabbler. And I've often wondered the same thing, where is the information coming from the cards, or is it because she knows me and she's projecting what she thinks she knows about me into the cards? So how do you know when you're doing that?
That's an excellent question, Lisa. Really, I mean, it is. I have noticed in my mind that things will come up. My logical mind will say, oh, maybe it means this. Maybe, oh, this is probably what's happening. But I have made a rule for myself that I never say anything that doesn't come directly from the cards. And yes, unless it comes into my mind 3 times, it's my way of committing to that. I feel obligated then to share that intuition. But I am very careful to let go of those I think or because I know about you. On the other hand, her knowledge of you just makes her reading go to a deeper level, as long as, she's not, and I don't think she probably would have any intention, because I'm sure she knows about the Turo now, that she wants to use it to serve you, to not tell you what to do or how to be, or, that's, I'm sure, not her purpose. And I'm sure that if you receive a reading from her, that it could be a deepening because she knows you so well.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's do one last question here. This can be just a real quickie. Somebody is wondering, how do you know how much to charge for a reading? When you're first starting out, you really don't know how to put a monetary value on that.
Well, that's a good question. I think that you have to grow into doing it, and I would start, with what you feel is reasonable. You're just practicing. If you're just practicing before you're ready to be professional, then don't charge, and maybe do trades with people, for whatever their gifts are. But I feel it's important to be very gradual in building up. I started, very reasonably, and now I'm, because I've written a book and done this 30 years, my costs have gone up. But it's not about the money. It's about, that's the way I, survive. And so then I get a gift from you. I find one of the most interesting things that happens a lot in readings, when we've gone to a really deep place, the person will start to leave without paying me. And I'm like, that's because we're on another plane. We're not really about that. And so then I would say, just a small matter of and then she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be sorry. I happens all the time when we're really in a deep place. It's not about money, but we all need that exchange of energy. And it's a good exchange of energy when it's given respectfully and honestly and asked for in a reasonable way. So you'll know what feels right. You'll know as you grow if you can increase your fees, if you want to do trades more until you know more. But, it's all a very personal development, and you'll know what feels right.
All right. Wow. Well, this has just been such a fascinating conversation. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your really great questions. Once again, Journey Through the Sacred Tarot starts Thursday, November 7th. And again, you can visit sacredtarotcourse.com to learn more and to register. So before we go, Magick, do you have any final words for our viewers?
Well, I'm very excited to start this class with all of you. And by the way, I love the idea that the Shift Network is offering a way for me to communicate with you. Because when I first heard about it, it's like online, I need to see or hear or talk or chat with my students. So I'm so glad that you're going to be able to send me emails, ask me questions. We'll get some live exchange and chat, and we'll be interacting. So I'm here for you, and I want to give this gift to you. It's my life work. So I so look forward to meeting you all and sharing the sacred wisdom of the Turo.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you again, Magick. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you today. I've certainly learned a lot. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been a pleasure here too.
All righty. Well, once again, thank you to everyone who's joined us today. And on behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.